Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I had a challenge with my stamping group, my team, to do a challenge this month, and the challenge was to use any gray, any pink, and any green. And this is the design that I came up with. And after I put this together, I started messing around with colors, thinking how I would change the colors. And I decided that I used Pear Pizzazz, Petal Pink, and Gray Granite on this. And so I looked at this and started to think in terms of what colors match the flowers exactly. And I came up with Old Olive and Calypso Coral instead of Pear Pizzazz and Petal Pink. And while I think this is a beautiful card, I like the vibrancy of these colors. So I'm going to make this up in these colors this time. And I'm going to show you how to cut this laser paper so that you can get the maximum out of it. And this is take 2 for me, so a little bit has been done. So I'm going to set that to the side. We need a piece of Old Olive that is cut at 11 by 4 1/4 and then scored and folded at 5 1/2. So I'll give that a little burnish and set that aside. Then we have our matting pieces, and I have this piece, which is, both of these pieces I think are exactly the same size. Yes, they're both 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. Then I have a piece of Whisper White that is 5 1/8 by 3 3/4. And then my Designer Series paper, and that is taken from a larger sheet that has this pattern on it, and I think it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. It's part of that Petal Promenade, Beautiful Promenade suite. And so this piece of paper is 4 7/8 by 3 3/8. Then we're going to cut laser paper. So in the laser delicate specialty laser paper, your laser paper comes like this. And this is where I've already done this part. This piece here is bound on both sides by a piece that is like that. And what I want you to do in order to be able to get to some of these on the interior, you have to cut this piece away. So I had already started that when I realized that my camera had shut itself off. So that piece is already cut away. So I'm going to grab my trimmer here, and I'm going to show you how to cut the rest of this piece of paper. So having cut that piece away, now I want to cut this trim away. And this trim is 3 or 4 pieces of different trim. This little lace trim, it's just beautiful. This one is a little diamond shaped trim. This one is little circles. This one we're going to use on the card is a scallop that sort of resembles the scallop around this. And then a little dotted smaller scallop in here. So what we're going to do is cut away this whole section here so that we can get at the cards at the interior. And so what I'm doing is setting this in my channel so that I can get sort of equal distance between the edge of this and the beginning of this pattern here. And so I'm going to set that down on my trimmer and slice this piece away. Now, once these are cut, what I found was an 8 1/2 by an 11 manila envelope holds these pieces just perfectly. And so I've been putting my pieces that I'm slicing away in that kind of an envelope, and these that I'm not using in a separate, like a mailing envelope, so that they're protected. And you can cut some of that tissue paper that comes with the package to protect it while you're storing pieces that you're not using. So now what we're going to do is cut apart all of these 6 panels. And again, just trying to keep my margins relatively close, and if you don't get them perfect, you can just trim them up. And so I'm cutting again here because I want to be able to put these away in a way that keeps them safe and doesn't allow them to get any more damaged. And so again, I'm just cutting these pieces into individual panels, and then I can store them away so that they're protected. So here we go. There's that one, and the one that I'm after, which is this one. So I'm just going to trim that edge down, and that's the piece that I'm after. All the rest of these are absolutely gorgeous and will make lovely cards as I go along. So there's our piece. And then the scallop, let me get back to this trim piece that we cut here. The scallop that I'm going to use is this piece right here. And so what I'm going to do is just snip that one right out of this grouping. And that way I can store the rest of these away until I need them. So those are the 2 pieces that we're going to need to make the card that I've got in mind here. All right, so and the other thing that you need to make this card is a piece of scrap white to make your flower, and a little piece of scrap of the old olive here to cut out your leaves. And the stamp sets that I'm using, I'm going to make this a sympathy card. And so let's see, I am using the sympathy with sympathy from the Flourishing Phrases here. I'm using that stamp. And then out of the Beautiful Promenade stamp set, I'm using the large flower. And right now I don't see my stamp set. I don't know. I thought I had put it out, but I don't see it here. So we'll just know that this is out of the Beautiful Promenade stamp set. Okay, so I'm going to set some of these pieces aside until we need them. And the very first thing I'm going to do is put together, I also have a little piece of gray granite here that to go along the bottom edge of the card. And it's cut 1 inch by 5 1/4. So that's probably the piece I will end up doing first. And what I know is that I want this panel to be 5 1/4 by 4. So what I'm going to do is just put down a little snail on the back side of my piece of cardstock, my layering piece, and use my grid paper to set it up so that it's on here and square. Now then, I'm going to take this little tiny piece of gray granite here and get it to go to the 4-inch mark to give me my size that I want. So I know I can just put some glue down here along this and then set this piece in place at 4 inches and let my grid paper help me get that absolutely straight. And there I've got my piece all ready to go with my little bit of gray on the bottom. The other thing that I'm using is I decided that I liked the flower embossed in silver, but I didn't have any gray granite ribbon. So what I'm using is this white metallic edged ribbon, 3/8 inch metallic edge ribbon in the catalog. And this colors beautifully. So I have my gray granite marker here, and I'm going to color this to match the gray granite here. And then I thought the gray granite and the silver, and I'll show you a couple of the things that I tried that I didn't care for. This was one of them, where I just stamped the outside in gray granite and gave this some dimension and used regular white pearls in the middle of it. And I see my other one on the floor here. Just a second. And so I tried that on the card, but frankly, I thought it looked a little flat. So I did this one in silver, and I did one in gold, but I didn't like the gold next to this ribbon. I suppose I could color the gold ribbon that is very vanilla and get my gray that way, but I kind of liked the idea of the silver, because if I put a sentiment on here at all, and I use the sympathy sentiment, I might want that to be in a banner across here in the silver embossing as well. And that way the silver and the pearls and everything kind of match and sound to me like they go together. All right, so now I've got these two pieces put together, and the next thing I want to do, and I'm just going to bring back this big old piece of cardboard because it doesn't matter how messy I get that. And I'm going to use my gray granite marker, and I'm going to color in some of my ribbon here. And what I'm going to do, this will get lighter as it dries. And so I'm just going to color a length here of my gray granite ribbon. I know it looks very stripy as I'm doing it. Believe me, that'll all go away. And if you don't have it exactly the way you want it, you just pick it up and add some more color as you go along here. And I need enough to go across the front of my card this way, and then I need enough to go this way for the inside of the card. So I'll measure this in just a second and tell you roughly how much I colored, and then we'll see how close we come on what we need. But I think that's going to be enough, and that looks to be around 13 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just snip this off here, and I'm going to set this up here and let that dry just a minute. Okay, so the next thing we can do is do our stamping to get our flower and our sentiment. So I have my flower mounted here, and I've got my Versamark and my embossing buddy. And so I'm going to use my Versamark here on this, grab my Pierce mat, because this is photopolymer, ink up my stamp in Versamark, and I'm going to fussy cut this flower out so I can just put it right up against the edge here. There we go. And then I am going to grab my silver embossing powder here and get my flower covered in silver embossing powder. And there we have it. I lost a little video there. So I have redone a few things here, and I'm back. I think where I was when I was last on the video here is that I had stamped and embossed my flower, and I was getting ready to do the With Sympathy, and all I did was stamp this and emboss it in silver so that it would match the flower, and then I used a little ink dauber, and I went around the edge of this in Calypso Coral, just ever so lightly so it wouldn't be quite so stark. And that's kind of where I think I left this. So the next thing that I'm going to do is do some watercoloring on my image here. And I have my water brush here, and what I'm going to do is put some water down here on my, oh, that one's pretty dry. Let's see if I've got another one here with a little bit of water in it. Yep, I do. Okay, so this one is Blushing Bride, and I'm going to go with a nearly dry brush here, and I'm not going to worry about going outside the lines because I'm going to fussy cut this. And what I do want to do is just get ever so slight a base down here of the Blushing Bride to give the hint of the pink in the background here. And so there we go, just a little wash. All right, and then I'm going to work with the Calypso Coral, and I'm going to start in the center of the flower, put a little bit of water down here, and I'm going to get some of that Calypso Coral color here, a little bit darker color, and again nearly a dry brush, and I'm going to start from the center of the flower, and I'm going to just brush a little bit of that color up and away from the center. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second up close. I'm just trying to push that color out a little bit. Sometimes in nature the flowers have color that's on a gradient, and so there you can see I've just pushed the color away a little bit. Now I'm going to add quite a bit more of the Calypso Coral. Let me see if I can mop that up just a little bit, and I'm going to put quite a bit here in the center, and then I'm going to do the same kind of thing, brush that color a little bit away so that I really want 3 distinct shades here of this. Now I'm going to dry my brush off almost completely and blend those 3 colors together a little bit. I'm pretty happy with that. And maybe even go back to the Blushing Bride and get a little bit more along the edges there. Just a little hint more of the color along the edges, and just allow that to blend back in on the other 2 colors so that it's not stark. And there we go. There we've got our flower, and I'm pretty pleased with that. It's got good color all the way along, and it's very gradient, darker in the center and more color out towards the ends. And of course, as it dries, it does get lighter, and so I really want some intensity in this center part. There we go. All right, enough fiddling around. All right, so now I'm going to speed up the video because I'm just going to fussy cut this flower out. So there's my flower, and I'm going to allow that to dry a little bit. And on this one, I had cut out the piece, and of course I got it all the way done before I realized that the camera was off. So here's this one. So I thought I might use this opportunity to do something a little different. So we have this piece, and I think this would be very pretty to just snip away some of these pieces here and leave sort of a different kind of oval by just cutting away some of the flowers here in the center. And this is another thing you can do with this beautiful paper. There we go. I've cut away. You have to cut away what's logical And so now I have this piece to frame the piece that we're dealing with here. And I think that's going to work. I might add back a piece. This up here at the top looks just a little bare. Well, maybe I can add a little tiny piece here. Take this piece out and add it. I think that just about does it. So what I'm going to do is turn this piece over. So I'm operating on my vanilla side here, and I'm going to dot some glue on the back of these flowers so that I can set it down on my page. Okay, so there's that panel now that has this, and it's a little different than these two over here in that we don't have the scroll bits. So we'll have to figure out what to do differently on the inside. But I'm happy with this. I think that looks lovely. Okay, so we are now at the place where we're going to attach our pieces here. I'm just going to use snail to attach this piece here. All right, so let's see, which part do I want? I think like this. So this piece is going to attach on the front of here. And then back to our ribbon. I need a piece about that long. And I'm going to put some adhesive on the ribbon. Just a tiny bit of the orange or the Calypso Coral border showing at the bottom. There we go. All right. Then I'm going to take my flower, which is nice and dry now, and curl the leaves back a bit and get a little bit of dimension on it. And I'm going to put a couple of dimensionals on my flower. And I did die cut both kinds of leaves from the die set, and this was one kind of leaf, and that's the one I used on the original sample. And then I cut these die cut leaves, and I think I like these a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is put my flower right down here. And I think this piece can go on here, and I'm just going to use some snail. To put this piece on the card. And then tuck some of these leaves around. And okay, I can't believe it, yet another interruption. So I'm getting ready to put this together. This is sort of the video that almost wasn't here. So I'm putting on a couple of little dimensionals on my leaves, and I cut 3 sets of these leaves because I thought that's what it needed. And so I'm putting on leaves, and I didn't lay them flat. I put them up on the mini dimensionals as well. So there is that card, and I think it's very pretty. And I'm going to add my With Sympathy sentiment right here again on a couple of dimensionals, and that should do it, barring another interruption. Okay, so I hope that this comes through with the complete gist of the thing by the time it's done. But there we go. And so I think that is just as pretty as this. Now I still have to do the inside. And while I was at it, I cut this piece 5 1/4 by 3 3/4 to go on the inside of here, because I was going to put some of this trim on there. And now I'm just going to pick another piece of trim. See, I think I'm just going to take this little diagonal piece here, and I'm going to cut that out of this trim, and let's see what happens. It's all of the laser cuts. So if I put this in the center of this, and this, there we go. I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put it on the bottom. I'm going to put some snail on this piece here, and this piece again was cut 4 7/8 by 3 1/8, and I'm centering it on this piece of, well, maybe not centering, but up towards the top so that it has the margin all the way along. And then I'm going to set this little piece of trim right down here on the bottom, and I'm going to try and make it so that it's symmetrical here. And I'm going to use a dot runner on the back of this. Okay, and I'm going to put this little piece of trim right down here along this piece of Calypso Coral. There we go, to add that trim. And then I've got my little piece of the Gray Granite ribbon that I'm going to wrap just right around this piece here. And I'm going to trim this down a little bit. I don't need that big a piece. And I'm going to put some snail on the back of my ribbon. And I'm going to set this ribbon right along that edge and wrap that around the back of my card. There we go. And then add some snail on the back of the Calypso Coral. And put that in place right inside here. And there we go. No, I think that's too much. I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, so there we ended up with 3 versions of this card as a result of the strangeness of my video process this time. Let's see if I can figure out what that is so I don't do it again. Anyway, there we have our cards. This was the original, and I think still a very pretty card. This one was Pear Pizzazz and Petal Pink. And this was also, this flower was also done in Blushing Bride and Calypso Coral. All of the flowers were, but you know, I think I like these 2 the best. And the only thing I haven't put on this, and let's see, I had some little silver pearls that I was going to add to the center of those flowers here, and I can do that. And on this one as well, just a couple of things. Now, of course, everything that you see here can be purchased on my Stampin' Up! Store, www.lbedinger.stampinup.net. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. And or you could join my team. Everything here, again, can be purchased on my store. And there's some really good offers going right now, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to use this Petal Promenade paper, and that is that there's a buy 3 get 1 free through the month of July going on at Stampin' Up. And so this beautiful paper, along with any of the $11 papers, you buy 3 and you get the 4th one free. And so that is an offer that's available now. The other big offer is the offer to join, $125 for $99, or $99 for $125 worth of product, which is the normal deal. And then through the month of July, they're offering an ink pad deal. So 10 ink pads, any single color family. So all of the subtles, all of the regals, all of the brights, or all of the neutrals, or the 10 in colors, the ones from last year and the ones from this year. And so you get a 10 ink pad bonus for joining. At $7.50 a piece, that's $75 worth of ink. Now, what that does is it means that your starter kit, which would be $125 worth of material for $99, is now $200 worth of material for $99. And if you'd like to talk about it, I'd be happy to talk with you about it. My telephone number is always listed just below the video, and I've had several people join and would love to have more on my team. So let me know if you're interested, and I'm happy to chat with you and talk to you about what it's all about. So let's see, that's it for me today. The prize draw for the month of July is a Stamparatus. So if you make an order on my website between now and the end of the month, you're automatically entered into that drawing, and somebody's going to win it. So thanks again for stopping by, and I'll be back soon with more projects and more cards. Bye.